least got some, idea of what the structural model of the ego states is. I hope you've at least gone through either the call or the recording or the recap that we had created. Mm, And today we have Jayashree, and I'm just going to introduce. We have Roshni and I from the She Coaches core committee. Others are all absent, leaving us to do this responsible job. But we are very happy to do it. And we have Jayashree here to do this second session, which is the functional model of ego states. And that focuses on, and Jayashree will tell you more, but it's about interpersonal understanding, communication style, and how we interact with others. So to introduce Jayashree, some of you may know her very, very well, even better than I do. But let me just give a brief background of Jayashree. She is, of course, a facilitator, a leadership coach. She's a practicing psychotherapist, and she's steeped in learning TA, and she's done the TA diploma. She works with individuals, teams, and organizations globally. She's a postgraduate from Accelerate Jamshedpur and has rich experience in sales, marketing, operations, OD consulting, L&D in various companies. I think, Jayashree, you started your career with Titan, and then you went to Marico. And if you go to her LinkedIn profile, there are 13 experiences. And we are going to benefit from her rich experience today. So over to you, Jayashree. Please feel free to add to this if you'd like to. And of course, take us through this session today.
Super. Thank you. Thank you so much, Smriti. You've added so much about me that I will not go into me at all. You've done more than enough. So I am super loving being here amongst SHEmantrans. For the longest time, I've been a bystander. I've been a consumer at SHEmantra. So today is really, really special to me because today I get to facilitate the learning in this group. And I'm really excited to see what we will create for ourselves here together. So my amazing SHEmantrans, let's get started, okay? Now, I know you've had a fantastic introduction to ego states from Sai, and I'm going to build on that foundation. So what Sai talked about, just to recap, was the structural model of ego states, right? There are the building blocks, like the skeleton is the word I think that she used. Yeah, what they are, how they are made up, what is the content, how do they develop? Now that's the structural model. Today, what we're going to talk about is the functional analysis of ego states. What do I mean by that? It means that we will talk about how each of these ego states behave. What is the visible markers of these behavior? And to some extent, what are the invisible markers of how people act, speak, think in this particular ego state? So we'll start with the functional model, and I'm hoping that we also go beyond looking at the model and also look at a concept called functional fluency. What do I mean by that? It means our ability to be able to pick and choose the right ego state for the moment that we want our behavior to be coming from. That's called functional fluency. Yeah? Each of these ego states are, of course, have their own worth and useful. They're all equally great and useful for us. Can we pick and choose? That's the functional concept of functional fluency. And I would love to close with seeing how do we understand these concepts and use it in our coaching framework. Okay. To start with, Smriti, of course, got us started in a beautiful childlike manner of talking to us and getting us to share about some fun aspects of how we see ourselves. So here is for the next couple of minutes, I want you to put on your drama hats. What do I mean by that? I mean, I'm going to invite you to assume certain personas and get into the flow, get into the act to see what kind of responses naturally come to you. Okay. Imagine, if you will, let's say you're gone to a car showroom. Okay. You really want to buy a new car and you go there, super excited. You've got a bonus and you really want to splurge. And the salesperson is showing you around different cars, and you look at this latest model on the side, and your heart is salivating over it, and you ask him about it. He kind of looks at you and say, yeah, that's a absolute latest model, but it might be a little expensive for you. So that's what's being told to you. It might be a little expensive for you. Okay. Now, what if you were there in that moment? What are all the statements in your mind you might want to respond to him? Put it down in chat or unmute and share just that one line statement, which will be your first response to him.
What makes you say so?
What makes you say so? Okay. What else?
So I'm going to question, do I really need this?
Do I really need this? That's an internal question. Smriti Goel would ask, how expensive? Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Instead of reacting, I'd probably respond by saying, oh, can I try it anyway?
Can I try it anyway? Okay. Can I ask you the rate? Can I try it anyway? How much is it? What the hell does he mean? Yes, Anuradha, very authentic. I would say that's too in my mind. What the hell does he think I can't afford it? Do I not wear the clothes to be able to afford? Super. Let's check the right car. Let me be the judge of that. All right. Nice. Any more? I know we are 35 of us, yeah. Ask for his worldview. I know what I would buy. So when you say, Roli, I know what I would buy, what would you respond to that statement? Oh no, but I want it. Anuradha, make up your mind. Oh no, I want it, or what the hell do you mean? Okay, I'm aware about the price. Yes. Okay. So if you see the statements, and if I were to put them down into some cohesive buckets, some of them are facts and questions that we respond to. Yeah. What's the price? Can I still try it? Yeah. And so on. Okay. Check the car and the make. Now, from the ego state model that we saw, PAC, where do you think factual questions and asking for price, the model, wanting to try it, where do you think they come from? The parent, adult, or child? Adult, absolutely. Sri Lakshmi, parent? Why would you say it's the parent?
Oh, I was thinking that you are more what do I say? Thinking on those lines and planning and stuff like that. So maybe yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, so the ego state that is related to thinking, planning, analyzing is the adult ego state. Yeah. If you look at some of the other statements that we said, what the hell do you mean I can't afford it? Who are you to judge that? Hey, let me check the price and then I will let you know. Where do you think that is coming from? Is that the parent, the adult, or the child? Okay, Shashi says child. Okay. Let me add a tone to it. Okay, there are lots of, Rachel, why do you say parent? There's everybody else who's saying child, but I see that you're saying parent, and Anuradha says parent too.
Yeah, so for me, so the parent to me is about, I know what I'm doing, versus child is a little bit more like, I don't know. So hence I think it's parent.
Okay, Neeta says both. I'm really curious, Neeta.
So basically, I'll just put my video on once I reach home, but till then, definitely.
Go ahead.
So for me, like when I talk as an authority, it's a parent.
Mhm.
And in that only there is a childish, okay, why did you feel so? Being sarcastic also. So I feel it's both.
Okay, sure. So, now the words, what I would like to emphasize here, the words by themselves may not always be indicative. If I were to say the same sentence, and I see Anuradha said she's absolutely wearing her drama hat, lovely. If I were to wear the parent hat and be critical, I might say, what the hell? Who the hell are you to tell me what I can, buy and not buy? Let's say I think that in my mind, okay? I could also wear another hand and say, what the hell, yeah? How can he tell me what I can and not buy? I'm definitely going to buy and show it to him. That could be the rebellious child. The child in me that's got poked, and I want to show the other person and rebel against the implied statement, because the statement of the salesman as it is an adult. But there is a psychological transaction that's happening, an implied message saying, hey, pal, you can't afford it. So rather than responding to the adult message, and I might say, yeah, actually, I agree, it's too expensive, it's beyond my budget, but I would love to try it anyway. I may respond to the psychological message and say, either react from the rebellious child or react from the critical parent. I could have both. Now, in transaction analysis, we have another concept called either complementary or crossed transactions. There are other kind of transactions that I won't go into right now. Okay? So if either the social message or the psychological message is aimed at a particular ego state, and I respond from that ego state, then it means that we are having a complementary conversation. Okay. In which case, if the social message is directed towards my child and I'm feeling very rebellious, I might say in a very polite tone of voice, saying that, why don't you show it to me and let me be the judge of that? And I might say those words, but internally, and my tone and my body language might communicate the rebellious child, which is, do you really think I can't afford it? In that sense, it's complementary. At a social level, we are having an adult to adult conversation. At a psychological level, you are coming to my child and I'm responding to my child. However, the second example, if you was trying to put me down and provoking my child, but I respond from a critical parent back, then that is a crossed transaction. So as long as we're having complementary transactions, whether they're healthy or not, the conversation can go smoothly. When there is a cross transaction is where the two parties are taken aback. Now, one of them needs to figure out, where do I now shift to? There is a change in dynamic. And that space is an opportunity for us to move between different ego states. So when we look at functional fluency later, we look at this aspect, which is, can I respond from an ego state with a motive to enable the other person to shift the ego state that they are coming from? So just Sumita, to give another example of a crossed transaction. Let's say this is something that happened right yesterday with my teenage son. Okay? I asked my teenage son, hey, do you need money again? Okay, he is off to school and I want to know whether he needs money because he comes back on his own. He catches the metro. I know he helps himself to a snack in the tuck shop and all of that. So from my intent, it's coming from a nurturing parent, because I told it to, hey, Adi, do you need money again? Okay. My child inferred a critical parent. Okay. So from a nurturing parent, I sent it to his child. Now in him is a part of it that is adaptive child. And I will come to all of these terms. Okay. And the natural response would have been saying, oh, thank you, and takes the money. I do need money. What he responded with is, you don't give me enough money for tuck shop. Of course, I need more money. I'm not spending it on tuck shop. I need it for the transport or thereabouts. So when I asked him a pure straight statement, which is, do you need money? He inferred it as a criticism of his spending habits. And he responded through something called a rebellious child. So from the social context, from a parent to a child, from a child to a parent, and looks parallel. However, I will share the functional model right now. If you look through that, it was a nurturing parent to the adapted child or his free child maybe. But what he responded with is from the rebellious child back to me. He perceived that my statement as a criticism of his spending habit. Does that answer your question, Sumita? Yeah.
Yeah, so
yeah,
it
go
was
ahead.
two different states. You were responding to you as a nurturing parent to a adaptive child, and he responded from a rebellious child to a critical parent.
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Now, in this context, it's important for us as coaches to notice that I might assume that I am presenting a certain ego state. However, it might be perceived differently by the other person. So when we talk about, we won't go into that now, but when we talk about ego states in the functional analysis, we also talk about which ego state is in the executive, which ego state is real. In simple terms, it means there is something within me that's driving it. However, there is some other ego state that's being shown through my behavior and action. And that incongruity can send mixed signals to the other person. So the other person might respond to us based on what we present and not necessarily what we are experiencing. Okay. So I want to quickly go, sorry, hang on. Am I sharing slides?
No, not yet. Jayashree, I just wanted to say,
Yes,
so
go ahead.
just to summarize this part of your presentation,
Yeah.
that as each one, whether you are a child or a parent or an adult, we all have the three ego states, and sometimes the ego states clash, and that's where confusion, misunderstandings and conflict arises. And
Yes.
I just wanted to put it out there.
Thank you for summarizing that so well. So the functional analysis of ego state talks about how within the parent, there are two different ego states, the nurturing parent and the controlling parent. I will come to what each of them mean. Within the child is the free child and the adapted child. The adapted child might also be divided further into the adapted or the rebellious child. Okay. But essentially it is not a free child, and I will come to that. So what would be some of the ways in which nurturing parent shows up? Any thoughts?
Encouraging, appreciative.
Yes, encouraging, appreciating. What would be the
Open.
words we would use?
It could also be more care and concern.
Yeah, care, concern. What other words would come up? What words would come?
Open questions. How would you like to do this? What is a good time to speak? When do we go out? All those kind of questions.
Yeah. Questions, yes. In terms of statements, it could be, how are you doing? Can I do something for you? How can I help? These could also be nurturing. Yeah. I would not want us to look at a specific statement as to falling in which bracket, a specific question into which it falls, but more look at the cluster of the words we use, the body language that we have, the gestures that we use, the attitude that which we present with, to look at where to diagnose where is the energy in. Okay. So if there is a nurturing energy, what are the words you would use to describe a nurturing parent energy?
I think it will be more of expressing how I, as a parent, feel
Yeah.
than what they are doing is right or wrong. Mostly on how I feel because of what they are doing. So, bringing in a focus on how the mother is feeling or the father is feeling in terms of because of my actions or because of my behavior, so that there is a good boundary and there's a choice for the child to think over on their actions. Does that come as a nurturing one?
Yeah, so a parent essentially is both the nurture and the structure, which is the critical parent and the nurturing parent. Now, the nurturing parent shows up in as caring, concerned, forgiving, reassuring, permissive, warm, protective. So any of our behaviors, which includes words or our body language, which show up in this bucket, uh, is the nurturing parent. Now, the critical parent, on the other hand, shows up as opinions, as demanding, as principles, as structure of shoulds and shouldn'ts, as a powerful voice that there's a hierarchy, that power play that comes into play. All of those behaviors would come under the critical parent bucket. If you look at,
That was insightful.
yeah. Now, if you look at the the child ego state, now the child ego state has the free child. Now, what is the free child? Any thoughts? As the word expresses, the free is vocative of the free child.
No
Spontaneous.
boundaries, no filters.
Sorry, I didn't hear. I heard two voices. Spontaneous, yes.
Not so many boundaries, not that many filters.
Yes. Carefree,
Carefree.
accessible. Yes.
Literal.
Yeah, possibly literal. So the child ego state is the spontaneous one, the free child, the one that can express itself without too much concern of reactions of the other person. The adapted child ego state, on the other hand, is always behaving as if there is a parent that is watching, listening, and therefore puts itself consciously into a certain box of behaviors and is constantly adapting to the expectations of the parent in the head, even if the parent is not really there in the environment. Yeah. Any questions on this? As per expectations, absolutely, Shashi.
So is it like Jayashree, can we say it is the free child as they are born and then the conditioned child?
Yes, the free child is what we are all born with, and the adapted child is what we have grown to be as a response to our environment in some form.
But there is still a child.
Yeah, it is still a child. It is still a very much a child. So why is it a child? Because it is something like, remember what Sais showed last time, the wood with various layers over the years. So it's the child ego state has got formed over several experiences that we have internalized. At some point of time, let's say I've internalized that I should not stand up to authority figures. So if there is somebody in the organization that's giving me a certain instruction, then I might choose to follow that instructions, even though I disagree with them. Yeah, I might constantly adapt my worldview to what I think, let's say, my seniors in the organization expect me to be. And that's something that is learned behavior that we have. They could also be, it's possible that having learned how to adapt through parental figures or the environment, I choose to rebel. I might have had enough of adaptation. So therefore, at every opportunity that I see as a provocation, I would choose to rebel maybe. You've seen that with children sometimes, or even with adults. You ask them, do you want to eat khichdi? They'd probably say no just because we asked. Okay, if you didn't ask them any questions, khichdi is perfectly fine. Are you okay with eating khichdi today? I don't have effort to do anything else. No, I'm not okay with. Yeah. So that oppositional character is the rebellious child in us. And it turns up in organizations also a lot. Yeah. Where if sometimes people feel that there is no active way in which I can change my environment, I might look at a lot of passive aggressive ways of dealing with something. Yeah, for example, I had a client yesterday who was talking about how his manager literally breathing down his shoulder at all points of time. And his adaptive child is really high and he's not able to enforce his boundaries. Yeah, tell the manager saying, I will be able to do this on my own. Give me some time. So what does he do? He quietly, as soon as the manager comes out to say something to him, he does, he changes sheets. I don't know, there is some really flick of a button where he can change screens. He's changing screens. And at other points of time, he's doing his own stuff. And for him, it's an internal game, a kick that he gets that you're going to micromanage me. I'm going to get a kick out of intentionally doing certain things when you're not around. That's that innate rebellious child, which is not serving him in order to grow in the organization. Okay. Now, can nurturing parent also change to critical parent due to the situation? Shashi, absolutely. We are not in watertight compartments. We have in us all of these ego states: the nurturing parent, the critical parent, the adaptive child, the free child, the rebellious child, and the adult. Yeah. And depending on the situation, we have the capacity to choose any of these ego states. Now, the concept of functional fluency is that we are able to make those autonomous choices as opposed to working in a default operating mode. Now, given our experiences over our lifetime, a lot of these ego states have become a default operating mode. Okay. So therefore, when there is a certain stimuli in the environment, I might pick a default operating mode. Whether, let's say if somebody asks me, hey, can you come shopping with me? My default operating mode might be to say yes. I don't really want to say no and hurt her. If my manager asks me saying, can you stay back one day today? Sure, even though I had promised my family that I'll be home early. So there might be a default operating mode where I adapt. If I can build my awareness of where do I spend maximum energy, I can change the ego state that I operate from. Yes. So that's an interesting segue. Sorry, go ahead.
Jayashree, I don't know if you've taken these two questions. One was by Ritu.
Okay.
What's the distinction between nurturing parent and adult?
Very good question. Yeah.
And the other was by Alpa. Is it also true that critical parents tie into personality disorders?
Okay. I'll answer Alpa's question first because it's a quick answer.
Okay.
When you look at personality disorders, there are several personality disorders, and it could be coming from both parent and child contaminations. So I will not go into personality disorders right now, Alpa, but it could be both coming from parent and child, and not just only from the critical parent. Okay. To answer Ritu's question, difference between nurturing and adult. An adult adopts a okay space, okay, which means that I believe in your capacity to solve your problems, to analyze, to ask for what you need, and therefore I relate based on facts, figures, questions, permissions. The nurturing parent, on the other hand, presumes that you need help or support in some form. And therefore, I come with that presumption of support or care that you need. That is one difference between the adult and the nurturing child. There's another question about here that I'm seeing. Is it possible to not have an adaptive child part? Smita, there is possible for entire child to be excluded or a parent to be excluded, but that would go beyond the realm of coaching. I would go into deep therapy. For all of us functioning people, we have all ego states. And some of the ego states, and I'm going to come to that now, we need all ego states, even the adapted. Default and other mode. Mrinal, can you repeat the question? What do you mean by default and the other mode? Do
So
you
you
mean
mentioned
executive and the real that I spoke about?
Yes, yes. No, you mentioned about we move between these two, states. One where we probably are in a default mode of operation,
Yeah.
and
So,
the other one.
okay, here's something. Okay, let me use an analogy to explain. Okay. Let's say out of the experience that I've had over several years, and I've set into certain patterns of behavior. One of them could be saying, I have to always be perfect. I have to always get it right. I have to get 100%. I need to be the best. I need to do whatever it is, have to work hard. Now that's let's say a thought that I have, and that rules my life. Do hard work, be the best, be perfect. You've never attained it. It's a let's say, continuously evolving standard. And that's my worldview. Okay. So it's possible that, let's say, my default operating style is to be self-critical of myself. Even if I get 99, I have a 12-year-old who comes to me for counseling and say, yesterday's exam was okay, not so bad. I was like, okay, what happened? I got 99. So that's her self-critical voice. Okay. Oh, and then if she gets 100, it's like, I got 100. Thank God for it. I didn't get 80s. I didn't flunk. So there's this very strong self-critical voice, and that's the default way in which she responds to marks, as an example. Now, if we were able to strengthen her free child, which is able to spontaneously be excited, if we're able to strengthen her nurturing parent, which she can turn inwards, which is the care towards inwards, the celebration of her, she might choose to be less critical of herself and then start being able to celebrate her achievements a lot more without that critical voice. So the default might be the critical parent, but through coaching, through therapy, through self-awareness, I might be able to reduce the energy in critical parent by increasing the energy, let's say, in my nurturing parent or in my free child. And I might do that in several different ways, which we'd come to. Okay. Another example of another metaphor that I would love to use is that imagine, let's say in this operating system, there are several millions of files, all small, tiny bits of experiences that have gone into creating this operating system. Okay? All of these files are those rings like, Sai mentioned, and they're all kind of stored there. Because I react instantly, to things that happen to me. Let's say there's a statement that is given out to me. I need to pick one of those files to respond from. Now, imagine those files are divided into red files and green files, okay, as starters. The red files, for example, is all of those messages which says, you should do this. This is not all right. This is how you need to live. This, you need to make me proud. You need to be hard. All of these strong messages that come to me. And there is a green files there, which are not accessible to me. Let's say they're really far away, hidden somewhere. So for me, when there is an event that is unfolding or a statement that has come and I need to choose a file, the easiest accessible might be the red file, which is right up front. And I might just pick that and let's say respond from my critical parent. Example, a team member hasn't sent me the presentation deck they were working on. I see it's 5 o'clock and I might shoot out a mail. This is just not happening, Amol. You are supposed to have sent it to me by 5 o'clock. I don't have time now to review it before we present it tomorrow. Da, 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 da. That's my default operating style, maybe. I may have also other files, maybe a yellow file that, that I pick up, which might be an adult. Maybe a green file, which is nurturing. Okay, let's say if I were to pick a green file, I might say, Amol is usually on time. I wonder why he hasn't done it today. Maybe he needs support. Let me check with him and say, hey, Amol, anything up? Any problem? Would you like me to support you or help you to get this report done? So I have all of these. So when you want to move from a default style to a conscious style, it's about making all of those deep files which are buried in more accessible to me. And our work as a coach or as a counselor is about making more of those files accessible. I'm going to come to that. I want to share something before that. I've been talking about, for example, the positives or the various what do you call that, elements of both the nurturing or the controlling, right? Is controlling always negative and nurturing always positive? No. Yes.
Jayashree, do you want to be sharing your presentation? I
will. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to know if you want to or not, because I'm not seeing
Is
it.
nurturing always positive and controlling always negative? Yes, it is no is what the answers that shared. Why is it a no? What are some of the negative aspects of a nurturing parent?
I think
The
it
kid will
might,
not be responsible, maybe.
I heard two voices.
Sorry.
Rachel, I know you spoke and someone else spoke. Can you repeat that, please?
yeah, so what I was saying was that I think a nurturing parent, if the person doesn't realize that, the situation doesn't require nurturing, could actually stifle growth.
Yes, absolutely. Sumita, go ahead.
Yeah, so sometimes, over nurturing can lead to irresponsible behavior by children. That's what I feel.
Too accommodating for growth, over responsive, getting dependability, not taking responsibility. Absolutely. So when you have clients that come with difficulty in delegating, difficulty in, let's say, giving feedback to people, difficulty in having difficult conversations, one of the things we look for is um, a higher energy nurturing parent that might come in the way of um, these behaviors, yeah, creates dependencies, absolutely. What could be some positive elements of the critical parent?
Allowing them to try.
Allowing them to try. Can you share more?
Positive, I mean, though they are critical, uh, if they let it, I'm not able to explain it.
I think you're on the right track. I'd love to hear.
Yeah, I mean, as a critical parent, I might always, I might let the person try it out and see whether they fall or, whether they have a positive result or a negative result in whatever they are doing.
Okay, I would hold on to that thought. Okay. So let me see what are the comments coming in. Some of the benefits of a critical parent is aiding accountability and responsibility. Yes, candid and constructive communication, governance practices, plans and schedules, absolutely. So when we look at our functional model of ego states, this is what we are looking at, okay? That the parent ego state, whether it's controlling or nurturing, has both a positive and a negative element to it. The nurturing, while it is supportive, caring, and compassionate, when we over leverage that, it can be smoothering. We may not allow people to, to respond to Shivani, what we were saying, over leveraging nurturing parent, we may not let people experiment. We may not allow people to fly to fly and to try out new behaviors. We might be overprotective. From a controlling parent perspective, while there is constructive, organizing, firm are very, very important behaviors for all of us. And definitely, let's say, the executives and leaders that we coach, excessive controlling leads to being autocratic, fault finding, nitpicking, being dismissive, and so on and so forth. The adult is always rational here and now and does not have a subdivision. The child has both the adapted and the free child. While free child is fantastic to have, curious, playful, spontaneous, creative, free child helps us engage in intimacy and connections. Too much free child can also be being inconsiderate to others, being reckless, being wild, and so on. The adaptive child is, like I mentioned earlier, adaptive child is also an important part of our lives. Because without an adaptive child, we would want to reinvent the wheel each time rather than take some of the doctrines that we have got from our parent. Yeah, there are some things that we know. Don't cross the road if you're on the phone. Yeah, don't touch the fire. If you see danger, quickly call up home. Now, these are some things we might have internalized to keep us safe. There could also be statements that we have got saying, hey, if, always listen to the other person's perspective. Now, it's possible that that parental message, a response to being adaptive, helps me be cooperative. Yeah. So being adaptive is also about finding common ground, accommodating other people, going with the flow, for example, when there is a crisis, working harmoniously with others, all that comes from the adaptive child. Okay? If the adaptive child, we have excess energy, of course, we are fearful, rebellious, compliant, all of that. I'm going to stop here. I'm going to share one more thing before I'm going to stop. Now, when we look at diagnosis of ego state, there are 4 different ways that we see the behaviors, the social, the historical, and the phenomenological. Okay? The behavior and social is what would come under the realm as coaches for us. Historic is what typically a therapist or a counselor would do, look at the past history and look at why certain behaviors have got developed. Phenomenological includes looking at context where we are not just adapting those behaviors, let's say showing those behaviors of a parent and child, we have literally become the child, that 5-year-old incapable child, for example. So again, that would come under therapeutic realm. So I'm going to keep that aside. Okay. Okay, let's see, there are some messages. Okay. Some part of the slide is getting better. Yes. So as coaches, and in about 5-10 minutes, I would love a breakout room, Smriti. Okay. Put us into 5 breakout rooms. Okay. As coaches, I'd love to put the question back to all of you. As coaches, now that we understand the various elements of the functional analysis of ego states, how do we see it being useful to our work? Yes, Sumita, your hand is still ahead. Your hand is still up from earlier. Okay, it's loud. How can we use functional analysis of ego states in our work as coaches?
We can go over complementary ego states so that we can meet the client where they are.
That's lovely. Can you share some more as to what you mean by that?
For example, if okay, I'm not very sure exactly what this example, but I'm just going to go ahead anyway. Yeah. Which is to say that if a client is showing up in a parent or a child ego state, what is the best way to kind of respond to that, right? So it could, although it's cross-functional, one part of my thought process says adult could be the way to go. But maybe in certain cases, if it's a child, maybe some sort of parent needs to come in. I'm not sure about this piece, but that's how it sits with me.
That's a very good point, and a very good question. I'm going to come to that. Shivani, go ahead.
So, to my understanding, if I got this, I'm coaching a client right now wherein probably the absence, despite the absence of adult, the criticalness comes very often in their own judgment, like as though it's in their mind. So as you explain, it is like bringing on the other aspects more through the right questioning, through what will happen if you try this or that, and so that the dominating part reduces and they realize that there is other way to see it.
Absolutely. And that's the segue for functional fluency and our egogram, which I will come to. Thank you for sharing that, Shivani. Sumita, go ahead.
So for me, Jayashree, the way I look at it is, let's say a client has comes to me and says, my boss is overcritical, and he keeps on nitpicking on the mistakes that I'm making, and so then the boss is coming from a critical parent space, and you are responding as a rebellious child space. It is going to be cross what you said, and it is not going to resolve here. So if the client can become aware of how these ego states are crossing each other and there is no resolution, so either he needs to respond from a different space, or the boss needs to come from nurturing parent space, only then the discussion or the conversation can happen. And then he also needs to realize that he cannot change his boss. He can only work on his own ego state and where is he responding from. Is he responding from the free child space? Is he responding from the rebellious child space? What space is he talking to his boss from?
Absolutely. Beautiful example, Sunita, and I'm going to elaborate a bit on that. However, one thing I want to highlight is that the boss is being critical and I'm rebelling. And more I rebel, let's say the boss is getting more critical and I'm chosen to rebel more. It's a complementary transaction. It's not a cross transaction. Yeah, complementary transaction because his criticism is feeding into my rebelliousness and vice versa. And we can keep going in this unhealthy relationship continuously. So what the client needs to do at that point of time, the coachee, is intentionally cross the relationship, cross the transaction. Yeah. And the client coachee might have different options to cross. You might, one of the things that you said is that, how do I invite the manager to adopt a more nurturing space? Okay. But there could be other options. Invite the manager to an adult, invite the manager to a child. All of them are available. So as long as the client is responding from the rebellious child, the invitation to respond from the critical parent continues. So the client can choose to respond from an adaptive child, for example, to say, I see what you're saying. You're absolutely right. I'm really sorry. I've been doing this. I really want to change. And can you please kind of guide and mentor me in terms of how do I make the transition? Can you handhold me to teach me? I'm inviting my manager to move to a nurturing parent. Yeah. I can, if I have the relationship and intimacy with the manager, I can invite my free child. I can start laughing and say, because we are back in the same thing. You're going to complain. I'm going to rebel. It sounds like, my parent and me. Let's change. Let's go have chai. Let's come back and talk more about it. Come, let's go. Okay. Now, that is, I'm adopting a free child to break that critical parent and rebellious child link, right? I can also call an adult, which is say, sir, right now, when you are giving me this feedback, I'm only hearing the critical parts of it and I'm finding it unable to work productively. What I would love is for us to set up a meeting where I would love to know what I'm working well and how I might change the things that are not working right now. So can you give me, time tomorrow and let's go over. I might be inviting my manager to an adult okay instead of being critical. Yeah. So instead of parent to child, I go from an adult and invite his adult. So these are all the various ways I might cross a transaction that is not healthy for me to invite the other person into a different ego state. Now, having said this, it's not always possible that just because I invite, the other person might be willing to shift energies. Sometimes it's a lot of back and forth before we are in some other complementary transactions which are healthy for me. And sometimes, like you rightly said, Sunita, we need to say that, hey, the other person is currently feeling stuck in a particular ego state. All that I can do, instead of reacting from a corresponding ego state, I'm going to keep responding from my chosen ego state and leave it at that. So we'll continuously be crossed. He will not get the satisfaction of my rebellion when he's coming from critical ego state, but I'm going to keep responding from adult and stay with that. Yeah.
So, so are you saying, Jayashree, that the complementary ego states are not going to, so it's a vicious cycle? Is that what we are saying?
It can be. It can be a healthy vicious cycle. It can be an unhealthy vicious cycle. For example, it happens sometimes in partners, if you notice. Somebody is always the nurturing person and somebody is the child in the relationship, being nurtured upon and feeling very grateful and looking up to the other person and following that lead. So a lot of relationships, marriages can have a parent-child equation between them and live very happily because both of their needs are met. Yeah, there is some core needs that get met when I'm choosing to have my energies in a particular ego state. Yeah, which is a pattern that has got developed. So we can go along endlessly in a beautiful complementary relationship It may or may not be healthy, but we can go along indefinitely in that. So usually when something bothers us or our clients and we want to make a change, and the only thing that we can control is ourselves. So one of the works for the client is to be able to say, where can I move my energies to? And therefore invite the other person into also shift their energy. There was one more hand. If I don't know if you have the time, there was one more hand after Sumita. If not, okay, the hands are down. So I'm going to,
Yeah, maybe we can make the breakout rooms.
Yes.
How
Okay.
many minutes you want the
Give me
participants to have?
about maybe 10 minutes, but give me 2 more minutes while you're creating the breakout room. Yeah.
And what they need
what
to
I
do.
want. Yeah, give me a couple of minutes. I'm going to do that. So, behavioral diagnostics, like I said, words, voice, nonverbal expressions, posture. Social diagnosis is also possible for this, which is if I'm continuously seeing someone else responding to me from a particular ego state. Yeah, someone is continuously critical to me. For example, one thing is to observe our own behavior to say, am I giving out either a rebellious child or an adaptive child vibes to this person? Yeah, because if it's going on continuously, it's possible it is complementary. So our responses and someone else's responses to us can help us identify which of the ego states are at play. Okay. Here's something that I want you to do intuitively. Take about 2 minutes only. Okay. Draw your ego state, egogram. Okay. What does that mean? Draw a horizontal line with adult at the center, functional free child and the adaptive child, nurturing parent and the critical parent. Okay. Intuitively draw whichever one is your maximum, the space that you think you are inhibit the maximum amount of time or energy. Let's say this is a very unrealistic egogram. Let's say you have maximum energy in nurturing parent. You're the person who always go to taking care of other people. People come to you all the time for help and support, and you're known as the nurturing person. Let's say that's the highest. Once you draw that, then draw the others intuitively based on how much time do you think you spend in the other ego states as compared to that first one. That's why I'm only giving you 2 minutes. Just draw it intuitively. Okay. And this is something you can invite your clients to draw, or you could draw if you work sufficiently certain time with your clients to say, where is my client for the most time in which ego state at maybe in their professional life, personal life, with a particular person, in a particular context. Now, functional fluency states that there is a constant amount of energy that we have. And that constant energy is divided between these 5. Okay. So if I want to, let's say, increase my free child, then automatically something else out of this 5 needs to decrease. So usually in therapy, when we do, one of the easiest ways that we can change the functional fluency of a client is to help them strengthen the one that is poor that we want them to strengthen. So automatically, if I strengthen the nurturing parent, the critical parent will come down given the constancy hypothesis. Okay. At a later stage, once you're comfortable with it, you might even mark on your egogram saying, if nurturing parent is this high, how much of it is the negative nurturing parent? How much is the positive nurturing parent? And therefore, I might want to retain the nurturing parent, but reduce the nurturing parent, for example. Yeah. So those are some things that you might do. So here's what I want you to do in the breakout rooms. Okay. look at your, yeah, Shivani, you have a question?
If I may, a quick one. This
Yeah.
is very beautiful that you just explained and relates to what I was talking. You said we can use this. My
Yeah.
only question is usually when we're in the coaching session, this is all our knowledge, how we are observing, how we are asking the questions. Can you slightly elaborate how can we actually use in the session? I mean, because they will not understand the states, the way I am.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I do is actually educate my client to be able to say there are these ego states,
Yeah.
2 lines on each of them, and say intuitively, where do you think you are?
Wonderful.
And give me instances of where you show these various behaviors.
Yes.
A lot of the times, what we think is an adult behavior could actually be a child contamination or a parent contamination. It might not be an adult. So talking through places where they have expressed those behaviors will help us identify and help our client identify whether they have blind spots in how they're drawing their egogram. Sometimes I get them to say, explain this to your partner or your manager or your team member, ask them to draw intuitively. What is the difference between how you see your egogram and how your significant people see the egogram? Yeah. Okay. So in the breakout rooms, now that we've seen the functional fluency model of ego states, we've seen how we might draw the egogram. I'd want you to look at, as coaches, what are some of the things that you might do for each of these 5 states if you wanted to increase the bar for any of those states. Let's say one of your clients has a very low controlling parent and you feel they need more structure, they need more processes, more rules. Someone has very high controlling parent and you want them to reduce it. Yeah. Here, the question is, how will you increase any of them? We're not looking at decreasing. How will you increase any of the bars on the egogram? What intervention you might do for your client? Okay. 5 groups. Each group will choose one. Group number 1 will take a critical parent. Group number 2 will take nurturing parent. 3 adult. 4 will take adaptive child. 5 will take free child. Adaptive stroke rebellious child. 5 will take free child. Does that sound okay? We'll put it in the chat. Okay.
One quick question here, Jayashree.
Yeah.
Before we go to the breakout room, so now we're talking about coaching and we're talking about the coaching that we do. It's not therapy or analysis and all of that, where you can then tell your client what they need to do, right?
Yes.
So in that case, there would be essentially only questions and probes and nudges that you could kind of provide your client to be able to move from one to the other, where you're not actually in the tell mode, right?
Absolutely. So while you may not tell, you might have a broader coaching plan for them, saying, hey, my client nurturing, the free child is really low. There's no spontaneity, there's no joy. And therefore, you might say, and the parallel, what you might recognize in their life is that there is no self-care, for example. Yeah. So you might say, in order for self-care, there is this free, the fun, the spontaneous, so they have some joy. And you might say the nurturing parent, so they can nurture themselves through meditation, making time for a spa or taking a break. So that might be a larger overarching, let's say, path that you might think about for your client. Yeah. You might invite exploring. It may not be telling the client what to do.
Fair. So you're kind of creating this canvas of options for the client to pick and choose from.
Yes. Distracted self thinking, you guys are not back yet. Sorry. Okay, lovely. Would love to hear maybe just 2 or 3 lines from each group. Anybody can volunteer to share, just 2 or 3 lines. If you would like to put on the chat, that's also all right. So critical parent, what are some things that you might keep in mind when working with your client? Go ahead.
I was part of group 1. So what we came up with was increasing structure, adding schedules, more planning, understanding the gaps and pointing out attention to the gaps, giving constructive feedback, having rules, setting boundaries, setting structures, maintaining consistency and taking a stand, leading, candid communication, being strategic, being time-bound, goal-oriented, and taking charge. So having actions which lead to this is what would enhance the controlling parent.
And what kind of client or what kind of a client problem would typically want, enhancing the controlling or the structuring parent would more be required?
So for a client who is struggling with people pleasing, procrastination, not able to take a stand, exhausted because taking on too much, but not really bringing it together. So for a client like that, it would be useful to enhance the critical parent.
Sure, absolutely. Especially those whose boundaries seem to be very porous. It's good to help them put structures into place.
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Alpa. Nurturing parent. What would you do or think about in terms of increasing the nurturing parent?
Hi, that's good. I think we had a very diverse discussion. I think as a group, we were still being aligned on our own individual understanding. So that was nice to see how different perspectives came about. But just I think overall, if we were to work with a client like that, we would definitely first want to understand how they give feedback, how do they appreciate, how do they collaborate, how do they make decisions, and how do they reinforce things. Like first kind of little bit discovering that does a nurturing style overall come into play for you to consider, for you to let go of, or for you to give prioritization. And that's where we were also thinking, is it a good time to explain these states to the client? And that's why Mrinal put that up on chat. That do we at any point do this, or this is just like maybe theoretical context for us in our head, and we never discuss the ego states with the client. So like that was the debate we were on. Would love to know. Thank you.
Thank you. So let me address that question first. It was there earlier also, and this is my personal view. Okay, I see the ego, the egogram model, the way, let's say, we would use the wheel of life. Okay, or we would use Eisenhower's time structuring matrix, for example. We would give an explanation of that model. We would invite the clients to see how they might place themselves on that model and invite reflections on based on how they see themselves. Same with the egogram. We might say, hey, this is some of the energies that are possible. Draw that out. And then we might invite reflection. Why do they think their nurturing parent is very high? And we might challenge some of those assumptions based on what we know of them. If there are blind spots in how they have managed put their egogram. And we might use that as one of the filters or layers or tools that we use in our coaching to better understand the client. That's how I use it. But yeah, that is my personal opinion. And this is not an ICF certified opinion. I'm not sure where that would land. But I know even under the ICF framework, using of tools, including your, let's say, the wheel of life is very much par for the course. Yeah. So in terms of nurturing parent, sometimes there are life experiences because of which people may have a certain kind of an exterior behavior patterns. And especially when leaders come to us saying, I need to build, I need to build my team. There is not enough trust. There is not enough safety, and there is not enough, communication happening. And there are issues with team building and so on and so forth. I might have a look at where is their nurturing parent. I might also have a look at controlling parent, because there's another concept called the structure nurture highway, which I won't go into now. But the basis of that is people need both structure and nurture. Absence of any one of them would impact negatively. Yeah, we need those reinforcing boundaries because it creates safety within the reinforcing boundaries for us. We also need the nurture. Okay, we have only 2 minutes. I'm going to rush to the adaptive child first. If you could quickly tell us in 1 minute.
Group 4.
3, 4. Okay.
Sorry, I just forgot your room 4. So we were talking about how to raise awareness about the environment and self's response to the environment to make sure that our muscle in building or responding to that is in place. So that is what most of our conversation was around.
Okay. So in an organizational context, for example, being able to follow rules and structures. Yeah, if I want to kind of contain the rebellious part, I might look at enhancing the adaptive child part, for example. Free child.
Room 5.
Yeah. So at room 5, we found out that if we wanted to raise somebody's free child, what we could do is ask them who they, like the first question in the session, who do you want to be?
Yeah.
And so what is it that they would want to be? And to find things that they would do for joy rather than to get some performance appraisal or something, what they would like to do for joy. And the other question was, what would they do if nobody was watching them or passing a judgment on them?
Yeah. So one way to shift the energy from the rebellious child or the adaptive child is to enhance the free, spontaneous, creative child that can ask for its needs authentically and get them met. What I would love to close with is a few thoughts that I want to leave all of you with. One, at the first instance, as a coach, what I would invite all of you to be is to be aware about where your own ego state is, where your energies are when you are with the coach. Am I, let's say, more nurturing parent, adaptive child, free child, and so on? Because that is the corresponding ego state is what I'm going to be inviting in my client. So being mindful about one's own ego state and being mindful of what is it that I may be inviting in the client. Second is to be mindful of where is the client's energies and what is some of the reciprocity the client might need as soon as I come in. Okay? And if I don't want to reciprocate, for example, the client is coming in an adaptive child, I might need to adopt a nurturing parent as a start to give them that comfort before I shift them gradually to an adult. If the client is coming in with a critical parent in some form about, let's say, non-availability of schedule in my calendar, I might want to provide them with nurturing and sympathy to get them shift out of the controlling state. So what can I do to invite them to a different ego state? The third perspective that I would invite is to look at that the egogram shows us that there can be a fluency in the energies. So as part of my work, I can invite the client to reflect on what kind of energies they are bringing into any moment in their life and how they might consciously want to shift their energies. Yeah. These are some of the ways that we could go, and I want to end with sharing that I will share a note which has the theory elements of it for you all to go through with Smriti, and I'm sure she will share it forward with all of you. That's it from me. I want to share a heartfelt free-trial response. It's been an absolutely lovely time speaking to all of you here. But that came as an adaptive child. I wish it was free trial, but it is more adaptive child. But thank you all for being here.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Jayashree.
thanks, Jayashree.
Thank you so much.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks so much, Jayashree. That's been a very insightful session. It's a difficult model, but you made it happen and you explained in a short time. And I think everybody's benefited from this insight and they will probably take it forward. And we look forward to the additional details that can increase our learning. So thank you so much for being here. And thank you all of you for making the time and staying back. And thank you, Roshni,